War. Terrorism. All this violence caused by one single group. The Taliban. Hundreds of thousands of good American soldiers have been killed by this organization alone. Despite the immense crimes of the Taliban, there is no crime bigger than the person responsible for the actions of this organization in the first place. I'm Grady Burkhart, and this is what made the monster. The rise of the Taliban could be attributed to three main culprits. Mohammed Omar, the leader of this organization, the United States, the people who prompted their attacks, and, first of all, Soviet Russia. On December 24th of 1979, under the pretext of upholding their Friendship Treaty of 1978, Afghanistan is invaded by none other than the Soviets. This conflict lasted a grueling 10 years in a war infamously known as the Soviet-Afghan War. Even after this war ended and they gained independence from the Soviets, they were still left in chaos, suffering from the consequences of a war. The Afghan people were at rock bottom, needing someone to save them, something to drag them out of this broken country. Then, like a phoenix out of the ashes of a broken Afghanistan, rose none other than the Taliban. Among this terrible organization was their leader, Mohammed Omar.
As you look at the worst leaders in history, you can see a trend of suffering people who hear a voice of hope, with promises for a better future. Take Hitler, for example. Germany was writhing in the strict punishments of the treaties of Versailles. Then Hitler comes around promising that they will get out of it, which is obviously what they want.
The salvation that Mohammed Omar offered was the ending of the corrupt government in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. The Taliban was responsible for many attacks on the capital city with the intent of expulsing the American forces. In the end, all this violence can be tied back to one single man, Mohammed Omar. In the year 2001, the Taliban seemed like a distant problem in a distant country, until suddenly, catastrophe.
I was teaching 7th grade health in a small school in northern Wisconsin. My sister was also teaching at that same school, and I remember like yesterday when she walked into my classroom and said, "Have you been watching the news today? Or have you heard what's happening on the news?" And I had no idea at that point. She said, "You better turn it on." So I happened to have a TV in my classroom. So we turned on the TV and we were watching, I can't remember what was hit first, Tower 1 or Tower 2. Remember we had seen that it was on fire and there was great wonder at that time what had happened.
On September 11th of 2001, the World Trade Center was attacked in a terrorist bombing.
We were watching that, as we were watching that, we watched Plane 2 hit the building at that time, and I just remember watching the news all day that day. I remember watching the towers crumble. That day it was just a very, very terrifying time in our country, and to follow that, I just remember watching the news for hours and hours and weeks after, just watching the rubble be dug through, looking for life during that time.
The American people were left in fear, needing answers and justice for this terrible crime. With all this panic in America, some of the blame got pointed towards the Taliban, who were accused of giving refuge to Osama bin Laden and other al-Qaeda members. In response, they sent American troops to Afghanistan to locate Taliban members and, of course, their leader, Mohammed Omar. All of this considered, what are the attacks of the Taliban? An act of terrorism or a form of self-defense? Despite all the factors that led to the rise of the Taliban, the Soviets, who prompted their existence, Mohammed Omar, who led their attacks, or even us, the United States, who prompted their resistance, there's one fact that is definite. The Taliban is a problem that needs to be stopped. I'm Grady Burkhart, and this is what made the monster. Good night.
Inquisition.